Hey everyone, Robert here, author of Expansion Mastery, the practical guide to living a fully engaged life. Are you ready to start living your life to the fullest? Are you ready and willing to transform yourself and your life from ordinary to extraordinary? Welcome, my friends, to the Fully Engaged Life. Welcome back to the show, everyone. Mindfulness is a crucial aspect to living a fully engaged life. One could argue that without developing mindfulness, it would not be possible to live a fully engaged life. So we understand that authentic mindfulness is not just paying attention to something, that it is a formal series of practices designed to take you deep into the inner workings of the mind, where you can bring all of the unconscious, or you might say subconscious processes into your consciousness, where you can become aware of them, you can work with them, you can make changes, and then you can allow them to go back into the subconscious mind. Or you can let go of them entirely. I have shared some of these practices with you in the past, and I continue to work with many students and clients on these types of practices. But for today, what I would like to do is take a look at a practical approach to some mindful aspects of living. You know, in the East is where we find these specific practices that allow us to develop the state of mind known as mindfulness. And those practices take us incredibly deep into the recesses of the mind and even help us touch on spirituality. But some cultures still remain naturally mindful in many ways without practices. It has been passed down from generation to generation and has not been lost. And while these practical cultural aspects of mindful living may not be anywhere near as deep as those that the spiritual practices provide, it still allows us for a gateway to begin living a more fully engaged life. So let's take a look at this practical aspect of mindfulness that you can begin incorporating into your lives right now. I would like to draw upon mindful eating because everyone has to eat, right? And this is one of those things just like breathing. In the practices, I stress that the breath is one of the most important tools we have because we have to breathe. So it's something we're doing naturally all the time anyway. Eating is very much the same. So we're going to start here with a practical look at sort of the spirituality and a little science of eating a meal in a way that allows you to live more fully engaged. Let's begin with a little of the common sense and science involved in eating a meal more mindfully. Please keep in mind that I am not a dietitian nor a physician, so you may want to consult some of those professionals before you engage in what I'm going to say here. However, it could be said that a strong immune system begins with our gut health, because our digestive tract works alongside with the immune system to protect us from various infections. So eating high-quality, natural, non-GMO type foods is essential to helping protect our overall gut health and our immune system. And one of the things that I've found very interesting in this entire time of the COVID is that we haven't seen or heard much of anyone coming out to speak to us about how to improve our immune system so that we may possibly ward off this virus. And a few of the medical professionals who have we're quickly silenced. So it's important that we take our health into our own hands. We have to be responsible. And in order to do that, we have to become far more mindful. There are many cultures that will eat oily meats or an oily protein at the very beginning of the meal. Now, this accomplishes a couple things. One of the things is that it's usually best to begin your meal with a protein, as this increases the production of a gut hormone that helps you feel more satisfied, and that way you don't overeat. It also serves to lower the post-meal glucose, and these things are incredibly helpful because overeating is a mindless act. Although many of us here in the U.S. were conditioned to clean our plates, and while it is not good to waste food, we should also understand that this conditioning has led to the mindless act of overeating. Now, beginning your meal with a protein source, such as an oily meat, serves another purpose. The oils of the meat serve to coat the esophagus and the stomach, making it easier for the food to travel through the system and be broken down. In Spain, we noticed that often they'll do this with their jamón ibérico, and with Spain and Italy, they always have olives at the very beginning of the meal. And oftentimes it's even coated in olive oil. And we see this even with Italian foods, right? You soak the bread in olive oil. Again, that oil coats the esophagus and the stomach, preparing it for the meal. Not to mention, these things are incredibly delicious. And many cultures also have a liquid approach, such as aperitifs and digestifs. This isn't an excuse to indulge in a little bit of alcoholic beverage. This is actually a bit of science. So let's look at the aperitif, right? The little bit of alcohol or tomato juice that we drink before a meal. Why do they do this? It's an incredibly mindful thing because it is used to welcome the guests and to invoke a bit of a feeling of relaxation and celebration. Remember, our meals are meant to be a time of celebration. And of course, it also serves as a way to stimulate your appetite. Common aperitifs are vermouth, especially those that have been distilled with flowers and a little bit of herbs, champagne, dry sherry, and so on. And then, of course, we have the digestif. This is done after the meal and serves the purpose of helping to bring the meal to a close. Now, of course, it also aids in the digestive process. Things like brandy, cognac, grappa, vermouth, especially those distilled with a lot of herbs. And if you're getting one that has between 35 and 50 herbs, it's usually quite good. A little medicinal, but that's part of the function, isn't it? And of course, during the meal, you may enjoy a nice bottle of red wine, or if you don't like wine or you don't drink alcohol, then you might enjoy a nice glass of tea, either hot or cold, unsweetened, of course. You want to make it as natural and as easy on your system as it can possibly be. So even if you enjoy an aperitif and then some wine with the meal and then a digestif, it isn't about getting drunk. And this is the way we tend to look at it here in the United States because we were conditioned to want excess. So everything has to be to an extreme. Just look at all of the fast food places and convenience stores with their super-sized, giant-sized, king-sized sodas and burgers and other types of processed food. It is no wonder that our country struggles with obesity and digestive problems more than any other country in the world. So just taking that as an example, let's reflect on that for a minute. If you are having an evening meal Instead of eating fast food, you actually prepare good quality food, and you sit down and eat at a table, at the dining room table, instead of on a TV tray or in your car or some other place. And you begin with an aperitif, and then you go into the meal, and you enjoy the meal and either some tea or a wine and sparkling water, something like that with the meal, and then a nice digestif after the meal. And during the meal, you engage in conversation and enjoy the company that you are with, making it more of a celebration than just something you have to do. Here in the West, we have a tendency to look at a meal, especially dinner, as just something we have to get through so we can get back to more important things. And most of the time, those things are not important whatsoever. And this lacks any sense of celebration. This lacks mindfulness, because instead of being in the moment with the meal and the people and having this celebratory meal, we're trying to get it over with so we can get on to the next thing. This is not a healthy state of mind, nor is it healthy for the body. So you can see by having either a food-based or liquid-based aperitif and preparing your system for a meal and things like that, we just grab something and start eating it, right? There's very, very little mindfulness in how we eat and what we eat, when we eat different things, such as eating a protein source at the very start of your meal before you consume any type of starch or carbohydrate type thing. And generally, we're focused on anything but the meal and those around us. And this is not only mindless, but backwards. When we start to look at more of the spirituality involved, we can see that there is something very important, again, that we tend to lack here in the United States, where we look at preparing food as a chore. It's a job. It's something we don't like to do. And that mental approach to your meal is not only detrimental to you vibrationally, but also, again, backwards. Let's look at a great example of soul food. A lot of people tend to think it's a particular type of food. Southern fried chicken, collard greens, black-eyed peas, and that sort of food. And, well, that can certainly be soul food. A good friend of mine was telling me that what it's really about is that when Mom would go into the kitchen to prepare the meal, she was excited. She had some music, she was dancing, she's laughing, she's talking to people, and she would really raise her vibration while she was cooking. And see, it's that interaction with our food that matters as well. If we have a high vibration, that vibration affects the vibration of the food we're preparing. Whereas if it's a low vibration, it will negatively impact the food we are preparing. So that's the idea, is while you're cooking your food, is to have fun, to enjoy yourself, and to really get into what you're doing. Cooking is meant to be something joyous, not a chore. But when our mind gets lazy, when our body gets lazy, things like preparing a meal seem to become a chore. But this is not natural. It's not the right way. We're supposed to enjoy the fact that we get to have this incredible meal. When I was younger, I was at a friend's house, and their mom got up and started to cook, and she turned the radio on, and she was in there dancing around and singing, and she was cracking jokes with us kids and interacting with her husband, and she was having fun while she was cooking. And I remember thinking about, geez, this is really different. This lady must really like to cook. But that's what she did all the time. So my wife and I have our own version of that. Every time we prepare a meal, we prepare it together. And we go into the kitchen and we put on music, and we might get an aperitif, and we raise our vibrations, and we visit. We usually keep the conversation very light and fun, and we just go in and we enjoy the act of preparing our food and cooking our food. We have a great time together while we're doing that, and it's incredibly mindful. And even in this basic, more practical sense, mindfulness brings you into the present moment. And anytime you are really in the moment, instead of being distracted, you're enjoying yourself. So this is the idea, is you pour your soul, your heart and soul, into the meal you're preparing for those you love. Right? If you love these people and you have the opportunity to prepare food for them, it is a celebration. And of course you want your heart and soul in what you're doing. When was the last time that you had that sort of experience when preparing the evening meal? Most people we talk to anymore almost never even eat at home anymore. They always eat out, and unfortunately, a lot of the time it's fast food. But we find that people are losing their ability to cook. They don't even know how anymore, and they don't really care because they've gotten so lazy. All they have to do is run out and grab something somewhere. But this is a terrible breakdown in our humanity. And when we are mindless, when we are acting out of laziness, we are not living a fully engaged life. So let's look at this again according to some of the other cultures, like European cultures. Eating in the car on the go is a no-go in many of these other cultures. The more mindful the culture, the less likely they are to grab something from a drive-through and eat it in the car on the go. This is just a terrible thing. When I was younger, a lot of times we'd run in and grab a sandwich, at my grandmother's house or something, and we'd stand at the counter and again, just mindlessly scarf it down so we could run back out and play. My grandma would always tell us, you got to sit down when you eat. And we asked why. And she just told us, because if you eat standing up, you get cancer. So go sit down and eat. And it was like, oh, okay, I guess we'll go sit down and eat. And while her science may not have been sound, it still drove the point home. And we would go sit at the table and eat our sandwich. And this is why eating at a designated spot, primarily the dining room table, right, is so important instead of eating on TV trays or eating on your lap in the living room or something. This is why we have dining rooms. It's a special space devoted entirely to enjoying a meal. It's a celebratory place, just as a kitchen is a utilitarian place designed as a designated place in the home where we can prepare and cook our meals. And this is why in many homes still today, in most cultures, the kitchen and dining room are separated, especially by walls. A lot of times it's popular today in the U.S. to have a more open floor plan. But we want to be able to have this designation between the area where we prepare and cook the food and where we actually celebrate and enjoy it. So eating while standing up, watching TV or shows on your computer, scrolling on your phone, or even working are simply not looked upon favorably in many other cultures. When it's time to eat, it's time to eat. You put all of that stuff down and you come and enjoy the company and celebrate together. The dining room table is no place for your phone. Leave it in another room. Yeah, that's what it takes to live fully engaged. Sacrifices must be made, right? So this is what it takes. You put things aside and you enjoy the meal, and then you get back to it. Stop the multitasking. When you are eating a meal, raise your vibration. Have a celebration. Enjoy it and be in the moment with what you are doing. Here in the West, it's all too common to succumb to distractions, right? We've all seen how people in the 50s would sit at the table, especially, Dad would come home from work and he's sitting at the kitchen table reading the newspaper and eating dinner. And nobody ever saw his face while he was eating dinner. He was doing that as a way to get some quiet time and decompress a little bit from work. It's still not good. He was still using it as a distraction. And then we had the invention of the television and the little carts that you would put them on that had wheels on them, so you could bring the TV in where everybody could see it in the dining room. So you would bring the TV from the living room into the dining room so everybody could sit around the kitchen table and watch television. This was the beginning of the decline of the mindful meal in America. Now, instead of doing that, we have TV trays, so then everybody sits in the living room with their own little TV tray. Everybody is separated at the meal. Instead of coming around one central point, everybody is separated and they have their own little individual trays. See what I'm getting at? And there's no celebration. Everyone is distracted, staring at that stupid screen. This is not good. And of course, now even for those who do eat at a table, they're all sitting there looking down at their phones through the entire meal. They don't say anything to one another. They don't look at one another. They don't even look at what they're eating. They are totally distracted by their phone, just shoving food in their face until they can get done and walk away and continue to be distracted with their phone. All of this stuff serves only as distraction, and it detracts from the value, the celebration, and the mindfulness of our meal. And I mentioned earlier drinking something with the meal, whether it's a good bottle of red wine or some hot tea, cold tea. It should be unsweetened natural tea. And this is one of the biggest changes, and one of the things that I do enjoy about the West Coast as opposed to when I lived in the Midwest, because soda is not forced on us for every single meal. We drink iced tea with a little bit of lemon wedge in it. And this is so much better than always just mindfully grabbing a soda. And you look at many restaurants back in the Midwest, and they all have soda machines sitting out there so you can get as many refills as you want. And that is just terrible for your digestive system, terrible for your health, and just an overall detriment to the meal itself. It's been nearly 11 years since my wife and I have had a soda, and we have no desire for them whatsoever. So make sure that not only your food is of decent quality, but whatever it is you are drinking is decent quality as well. And there is no good quality soda. Don't fool yourself with the diet sodas. Those are even worse for you. When was the last time that you had a meal where no one was looking at a TV, a computer screen, or especially their phone? When was the last time that happened for you? Could you even do that? Could you put your phone aside while you enjoy a meal? Because if not, then there's not much hope for you living a fully engaged life. We have to be free of these distractions, and we have to be able to act mindfully, eat mindfully, and be in the present moment with the activity that we are engaged in. Having a designated dining room and dining room table is very important. And instead of filling it with clutter and leaving it sit, it should be used. And I have to bring this up too, because while we create a nice dining environment at our dining room table, and my wife and I have very purposely created a very warm, enjoyable spot in our home, in our dining room. We made it so that it's fun, it's comfortable, and it's a very special place where we eat our meals. Nothing else. There's nothing else on our table but some decoration. And the same should take place when we're dining outdoors. Right now, COVID is forcing everybody to do that because they're not allowing us to eat indoors at a lot of places. But this is a good thing. It gives everybody a chance to do that. Eating outdoors is phenomenal, right? Maybe you get to enjoy some fresh air. Maybe you get to enjoy an incredible view. These things just serve to enhance the celebration and experience if we go out to eat somewhere. And this can be a favorite restaurant of yours, or if you pack a picnic and take a hike and find your own place to sit and enjoy a meal. We have to be mindful of these things. So, on the occasion that my wife and I actually go out and eat, or we go to some sort of celebration event, we like to eat outdoors if possible, because the fresh air is really nice while you are enjoying a meal. Not to mention you can have a little sunshine. And if you have the ability, get the table, get the spot with the best view. There's nothing like it when my wife and I go out and we're enjoying a fine meal together in one another's company and sitting overlooking the bay. Oh, it's just beautiful. It's amazing. It just adds so much to the experience. And each one of these things, it keeps building one upon the other. Like, I have the most amazing company in my wonderful wife, and we go to an incredible spot that serves great food. We have something great to drink, whether it's just freshly brewed iced tea with a lemon wedge or a bottle of wine. And we have maybe some live music and an incredible view outdoors. It's hard to beat that. It just feels so good. And having live music is always the best. And I have to give a quick shout out to my buddy Mike Anuzzi, because the music that this guy plays and the songs that he sings really raise the vibration of a meal and your experience. It's fantastic. And for those times when we're at home, my wife and I always put on romantic music. We light candles on the table. We dim the lights. We have a romantic, relaxing, celebratory experience. And it's really amazing that once we finish our meal and we stand up before we start to clean up, our vibrations are always soaring. And that is a wonderful sign that you are living a fully engaged life. I've shared things about mindful eating in the past, but I wanted to take a little bit more of a scientific approach, understanding how people actually are using which foods they eat, what types of foods, the things that they drink, as a way to help their health and improve the way that their body is able to digest their meals. And then, of course, we have the vibrational aspect of this as well, where we are holding a high vibration and being filled with appreciation, love, and joy while we prepare the meal, while we cook the meal, and especially while we enjoy the meal. And above all, a meal should not be rushed. So when was the last time that you incorporated all of that into your evening meal? If you haven't, then there is no time like right now, today, to start. If we look at mindfulness in a practical sense, and we begin to become far more mindful with our meals, this is a way for it to begin to come into our life in a very effective way. And it's preparing us for practices. If we can be mindful like this as we eat or as we do whatever it is we are doing, then we will be able to engage some of these practices possibly a little easier. And even if you don't engage in formal mindfulness practices, at least you can live a little more mindfully, a little more fully. It all comes down to this. Are you ready and willing to transform yourself and your life from ordinary to extraordinary so that you can start living a fully engaged life? I trust that that was a resounding yes I just heard coming from every one of you. And I am truly excited for all of you to join us living a fully engaged life. please visit me at www.expansionmastery.com. Get your autographed copy of Expansion Mastery as well as all the other goodies on the site. Check out the blogs and everything else that's there. And make sure that you share these podcasts. I appreciate every single one of you who does. I keep track of that sort of thing. And it means the world to me that you are willing to do that. So thank you. And I hope other people are benefiting from it. And make sure that you do all the social media stuff as well. Subscribe, like, all the routine with that. Just don't do it at the dinner table. Until next time, my friends, I wish you the best in your practices and your life. Take care.